Greetings, mortals, peers, and queers. Welcome to another interview. This one's going to be a little bit different, folks. Usually I read from a pre-selected list of questions, but today we're going to freestyle a little bit more. We've got a new content creator who I was introduced because they came up with a college course for world peace, a fascinating topic that I would love to hear more about. With that, I will turn it over to my guests to give us their name and their pronouns.
Hi, my name is Am, like the adverb, and you can call me any sort of pronouns you like.
All right, lovely. So, tell us, what got you interested in the topic of world peace to begin with? What got you started on this project?
Well, if I want to really go back to my core, ever since I was a little kid, I was like wishing for world peace every time I made a birthday wish.
Mm.
Um, Even though it was like far fetched, and my parents had to eventually be like, "Hey, you gotta wish for things that are like obtainable, like not like they're trying to bash on your wish or anything, but we just don't want you to be disappointed all the time." So for a long time I had a sort of like mentality of there is definitely a sort of order in the world that I don't really subscribe or agree to. And when I got to college, I was first in chemistry and then I moved into criminology to better suit my interest, which was more like the forensic science field at the beginning of it. But what caught my eye was anthropology, which is like the study of humans.
Mm.
And so I'd always been interested in humans and psychology and things like that. I want to say soft diagnosed with autism because my therapist completely agrees. But as many people know, psychiatrists are like, what is that? Especially with someone of my complexion and appearance. So like I definitely have certain experiences where I feel like I am living in a more macrocosm state and I consistently feel sad for the world in ways that other people don't really relate to. So, looking for solutions that benefit people, genuinely benefit people, because I usually remove myself from the equation very objectively, not as a way of like trying to like self brag, but as a way of like, it is hard for me to see myself as a person anyway. So, it's hard for myself to input my selfishness because my selfishness is very hard to like disconnect from world peace in any way. um, because I would want something best for the world for me. Period. I guess you could call it a special interest that I was definitely ignited with anthropology because then once I studied humans and once I studied that they were very prone to thinking that one thing is serving them when it's completely a different thing, such as like tool use versus community, um, and how people value tools much more than the community that helps make the tools work, and teaches each other the tools and functions and vulnerabilities. Um, all of those things you learn just like by studying what we as humans became from the ground up, from the first evolutions of Homo erectus to like the first tools used in the Stone Age to first arts and the first burial grounds to how we treated um, our sick and our weak and things like that, and all the way up to agriculture and everything we know today. Um, and the ways that we are so socially conditioned to think that we're very selfish people is very capitalistic, and very, I don't want to say, I wouldn't say agriculturally based, but it is definitely based in feudalism, which was during an agricultural era, which helped, which was based mainly in sort of like the ideas of communities that were hierarchical and not societally based.
So you don't think that humans are naturally greedy? Um, what
No.
what do you think humans naturally are?
I think that survival can come in many sort of facets, and it depends on what you put your brain and what you put your stock into. And it depends on the culture that you're built into. Like, I think that um, you can come from a very family oriented yet selfish culture where you put family first to the point that it becomes a sort of um, selfish selflessness. Like, and that happens a lot, I would say, more in like ethnic households. I can say because I'm like from like in like Trinidadian households, like and like Indian households, because they're so considered so ethnically and culturally together. People see them as being very like selfless because like it's all about family, but at the same time it's all about family. What about everyone outside of that at the same time, and what about the people inside of it as well, being individually served, not just as a unit but as a self? Because you can never put the self above the unit, but you can never put the unit above the self. I think that balance is a much more like we seek to have like we are the same as like other things. We want balance and order, but it doesn't have to be through greedy means. But people think it does due to the societal pressures we have.
Okay, so you say you're pulling from anthropology and criminology, and you're obviously looking back through history with feudalism and agricultural societies. What sources are you drawing on to build this plan of world peace? Is there prior research that you're referencing that helps build out the roadmap?
So I definitely would say that throwing around Marx's name is a little bit like I don't want to be someone that just throws around like, oh, everyone should read. But I definitely like is a good grounding point. And also, I think reading hierarchy of needs and then also not just the hierarchy of needs, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but like consciousness. Because understanding where you are in consciousness of the self, um, I forgot exactly what that source is, if I'm very honest with you. However, there is a specific source where it has a sort of like 1 to 6 levels of consciousness, and you have like certain levels that you're supposed to reach at certain ages. However, if you look at them on a more and you look at them from a different scale, it or look at them from less of a rigid scale and more of just like how people interact day to day, you can see where people might be on their self journey. So I've tried to, if I'm honest, I tried to actually pull from. It's hard to explain how I did this curriculum because so much of it was done in between my classes of college.
Oh, oh, did we lose you there for a second? Hello? Oh man, 8 minutes in. I hope. Oh, come back to us.
Teachings.
Oh, they're coming in pieces. Oh no. Well, it wouldn't be one of my interviews if it wasn't a little bit scuffed. Hang on, we'll see if we can get you back. I should also just like make their face a lot bigger. Are you there?
Hello.
Sorry, we lost you there for a second. You're back.
No worries. What was the last thing you heard?
That you had started to do this in between your college classes.
Okay, so yes, I had started doing this in between my college courses. So, um, what I realized, a lot of my sources were coming from not as much what was, well, a lot of it was coming from the New Jim Crow, which is a book. I forgot the actual author, but that's a lot of where my societal sources came from because of just like the way that it was explained. And I was taking an African American course that was criminologically based, and how like African Americans were targeted by society. But I tried to view it from a macro scale after that, based on how um, those societal um, those societal pressures were fundamentally good for the wealthy and good for the capitalistic ideal, um, in my studies, so that I can show people the connections between like racism and like those like certain systems in place and functions. of those systems instead of just saying they just happen because they happen. Um, because some people may just say that. And I feel like that that in combination with um, anthropology, just like the base of anthropology, a lot of that was what I was using with like how people view culture, how people view like how time in culture is different, and how people view and how language can differ, how people even interact with objects. Um, and then if you transcribe that language to um, how it serves like in different uh, societal things, some may serve to have more of like a communal basis, while others may serve to have more of an individual basis, and that's and that's why it's difficult because a lot of it kind of connects. A lot of it connects, but like not in not not technically because I'm drawing from a lot of different because I also took chemistry, so I was drawing from a lot of different um, studies at once.
Okay, so you say you're drawing from a lot of different studies, and you mentioned Marx earlier. Is there a particular central political system that this builds off of as a framework? Are you is communism the way to world peace, or is it capitalism or feudalism?
So I feel like I want it to be more of a social basis, and I want it to be less individualized. And that would be detrimental to capitalism as a whole because the more individualized you are, the more profit happens. Um, but when you get to have a more communal basis for where things come from where things grow, to where things are sold, to like the value of it goes a little bit beyond the monetary. And so, like, having social societal systems, even in the smallest ways, which my criminology background would base that, like deterrence theory, which is what all capitalistic police figures run on right now, doesn't work because we still have crime, because they profit off of crime, which we also studied in criminology. So, um, as like that's going on, you have to go for more social systems and social systems of um, in a more and to ease people into it would be these boys and girls clubs, these after school programs, the anything to engage the environment, to engage the art, to engage the nature, communal gardens, things of that nature. But they always want to have it, well, at least for my college, it was always more of like you volunteer to do that once or twice and then it never happens again. That's much more of like a liberal mindset. Let's try something and then move on from it. So you could sort of have a taste of what's going on in every sort of pocket, but it's not really progressing anywhere. It's like a gas. It's like a instead of like a conservative mindset where it's just like where you're conserving energy and it's conserving into a rock. You're a liberal and you're moving around and you're moving into every single different possible area without having a single basis like a liquid that moves forward and progresses and actually changes the environment around it. So
Okay,
yeah,
so a lot of
I'm a
your
progressive person.
political ideology also draws from your chemistry background. So then
Exactly.
tell us a little bit more about this plan for world peace. So it's a college course, right?
Yeah, I would want it to be more of a college course, and I also took a logic class, and I think that really helped because the way that in chemistry, in the way that you have to balance equations, helping people balance their understanding of what's happening in the world, like this can't happen without this happening, and that can't happen without this happening. Understanding the chain reactions of the world will help you understand where you can put those footholds and stop certain like trickle down problems happening and like issues going on. And So I would want to treat it like a common sense course, honestly. I would want to treat it like something you can teach anyone freshman year, because then you can build off of it and branch out of it just not being a world peace curriculum, but it could become something way bigger than just like the basis. Like I would want to teach the smallest things from like why people end up leaning sort of certain ways later on in life by tackling what happens as you grow older and things like that, and along with what happens with your environment as you grow older. And it's very, and like certain things are not very easy to see unless you have someone to explain it to you. And I feel like in college, a lot of things are left for the students to explain. And that led to a lot of crosswords where everyone was just like, well, anything can be the answer as long as you get the test properly or as long as you write all the answers right. And like, that's not what it should be when you're trying to teach someone how to move forward in life and progress in a meaningful way where their brain will actually get healthier. You know what I mean?
Okay, so give us then a quick lesson. What is the fundamental building blocks to world peace? What, in your opinion, what does this class teach? Give us a lesson.
So I believe that this class's first lesson would be about communication and communication in with listening. Um, Communicating in a way that is not meant to be argumentative or not meant to also leave your mind as soon as you have this conversation. Um, I sometimes think that there are definitely certain areas where people feel like communication can also be a power construct. And if you move that from that power construct down and you actually break other people's conversations down to how they feel and the self reflections that come through their communication styles, you can become a better communicator overall. And you can also become a better understander overall of how they may feel. And it can help you understand certain viewpoints that you may never have understood beforehand. But understanding those viewpoints doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It can also just make you more of a patient person overall. And being more patient in context of communication helps a lot more progress get done. So to make the class itself not have as many communication, like hopefully if it would make the class not have as many communication pitfalls or like sort of like argumentative traps that some people may feel like they want to get into in college, because that is what happened to me a lot. And it came from a very certain set of people, um, and a very certain set of debate brain. And is communication and debate brain do not go well. So you have to be ready to communicate with people in order to progress, not debate with them.
Okay. So communication is one of the big fundamental building blocks, and I can see how that would be important. What about other things, like food, water, shelter? Um what is with a path of world peace, does that involve giving everyone food, water, and shelter? And if so, how do we square that with the capitalist idea of that you should have to pay for food, water, and shelter?
Well, that would come from having you would have to stop criminalizing the idea of food, water, and shelter. Such as, I know there are like people that do anti squatting laws, there's homelessness that is deeply like a homelessness that should not even be an issue is consistently and always a profitable issue. And there's gouging and things like that that you would have to start with social programs and things like that in order for people that they would want to not progress to certain levels of um, legislature and things like that, so they could help in those more systemic, harder changes of people getting the food security and redlining and of the it, that's I think that would be the harder issue because that would be the jump where people that can't see how this is a slow structural change may not want may not want that 50-year gap of change or however it may take. um However, if we were able to start with because the prison system itself is also a big issue, and then the criminalization of like certain people's when there's literally more prisons than there are colleges. So dismantling private prisons would be also a really important issue because it would then have more people that could also help in this fight. And also more people that I think that are capable because there's also just like this there's just so many things that are just like wrong in the system. There's so many people that make there's so many like prison fooders that also like prison food producers that also make food for colleges. They made food for my college, and like it was not up to code food. So you also have to make sure that the food that's happening is socially acceptable. It can't just be anything. I personally like I and then like at the same time, um, like that's why it has to be like those social programs of helping people get to places in power where they can actually oversee in ways that are um progressive and not just for profit. And those social like that is the important part because then they can make sure that it's not just anything happening when it does happen.
Okay. So, you had mentioned that some people might not want to sit around for the 50 years of change. You say this is a freshman class, freshman college class. How long, if you started teaching it tomorrow, how long would it take for to see the change that you'd want to see?
Well, I think I could see the change I want to see. It depends. Because if you're talking about the changes like systematically, I may not see it in my lifetime. However, those small communication changes are monumentally big when it comes to how close we are to globally to global ending issues. I feel like communication has become such a hardened thing where like people I guess like people have certain communication things going on right now that are more than fine. However, I feel like once the curriculum starts and it gets past that and it gets more into like how things are balanced out, I want it to be able to help the college students also be able to get through their years in college. So if it's able to just help those that first batch of students get through their years in college with a positive mindset and a better idea and not feeling like they have doom in their bodies at the end of college, like a lot of college students have, I think I've done my job well.
Okay. Speaking of those college students, obviously you're going to get a lot of people with a lot of differing opinions. Um, how does this class square with people who, might be on the far left or far right or center? Is this are the lessons in this plan applicable to everybody, or do you have to already be of a certain political bent to find yourself thriving in this class?
I feel like you would have I don't think you would have to be of a certain political bent to find yourself in this class. I think would have to be open to it's like if someone who was from an openly racist background took an African American studies class. And it's like you have to be, people are there to answer your questions, and you're there to learn. And it can also feel like you have come away from the class without learning anything. But as all professors are encouraged to do, please go to the professor with all of the questions and concerns that you have. And I feel like I also have had, I was also concerned with not being able to handle certain beliefs, but certain beliefs, again, are reflections. And if you teach that, and I do want to teach how certain beliefs are reflections and certain things, and some people may not believe that at all. And that is more than fine with me. But it comes, when you get to college at certain points, it comes from certain life experiences and adjusting curriculums, and I am more than fine with doing that as well, because I think that me being as willing to change is just as important for progressive curriculum as the students are willing to learn and learn new things. So if a student comes to me with like new information and I look into it and I'm like, wow, that is really cool and that's really different, and I want to be a person that's someone that can definitely feel comfortable doing that with.
Awesome. Um, so you talked about how the first lesson would be communication. What do you think is the most important lesson, most important takeaway from this entire class?
I think the most important takeaway from this entire class is how um, everyone is better when they are together. And by that, I mean knowing in your soul deep in bones that you are, even if you are alone, you're not alone. That like every single like hello and hi back is like a response, as if like two like flowers touch each other and notice that they're each other are alive. You know, like it's the acknowledgement of the self, as well as the acknowledgement of the self within yourself, that keeps you from not feeling lonely, and reflecting yourself within certain things that you do, and certain things that you say, and certain things that you feel, and let yourself have those emotions, and letting yourself have those emotions are all very important in the journey, and all very important in community. Because if you don't, if people, I think some people may not be able to realize this, but every moment you neglect yourself, you're neglecting the community, because the community is not like, I don't want to say the complete community is not complete without you, but if you are hurt, people are going to feel bad. And that, and like, no matter where you are, people are going to ask, are you okay? You know? And that in and of itself shows how selfless people can be. Even if like people don't want to listen, they don't want to be rude, they're still going to remember if you are not okay. And that's a reflection of the brain. And that's a reflection of the brain's memory and how important those things can be.
Hmm. Okay. So, hmm. Who do you think needs this lesson the most? Who do you think needs to take these classes the most?
I think it would be important for anyone that feels kind of like scared, kind of unsure about like maybe their place in the world. I want it to be as welcoming to like a rich white kid as it is to like someone that just came like from overseas, to someone that's from the neighborhood that comes to the college. Like I want it to be very versatile, but I want it to be a comforting class. Like I don't want it to be um I don't want it to be something for like only the slickest and brightest of minds can get this. I want it to be a conversational thing, but also comforting at the end of the day because it's supposed to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
So people
Well,
that so
mhm.
people that are like comfortable with that.
All right. Then opposed to that, who do you think's going to have the hardest time picking up this class?
I think if you're someone that's just like if you're someone that's in class to just kind of get the lesson and go, maybe you may have problems with this class because I feel like you may be trying to look for like completely only the right answer. And when like I'm looking to like when it's much more of a much more of a class to like it's much less of a class of like just get the answer, get the lesson and go. I would want it to be something that sticks in people's minds. They can think about it and talk about with their friends the next day, like as they're doing whatever. Like I want you to be able to like smoke weed and like talk about this class while you're hanging out with your friends. They're like, oh, that's pretty dope, like that. Like I want it to be something like that because me and my friends have had classes like that that really shaped and changed what's going on. So if you're not as philosophical, I guess, um, but hopefully it opens your mind to being that way.
Okay. Um, then, how would people access this class? Are you ready to start sending it to colleges to teach, or is there an online version that people can find? Um,
Unfortunately, I've been like extremely busy, so I haven't really been able to extend it past more of this like pilot thought and then like what I would want to incorporate and when. But planning out a full roster, I would want it to be accessible online, and then if other colleges wanted to pick it up, I'd be more than fine with starting there. Probably more like with like my original college, TCNJ, which I'm totally fine with like shouting out. Because there are a lot of professors that know that I was very deep into that. And we're very much like, well, I can't wait until you solve that one day. I don't know if I'll be around, but
all right, lovely. I think that is all the questions I have for you today. So we'll go ahead and I'll give you a chance to give your closing thoughts, final statement, and final word to the audience. You know, final takeaways, and shout yourself out. Go ahead.
thank you. So I'm very glad to have been able to talk about this. As someone who was a kid that definitely just like had a very big imaginative brain, getting to work with a lot of professors that very much endorsed this idea and train of thought that I had of trying to find a more calculative way of going towards world peace while observing things that were going on at this current time um, really helped my confidence. So, and how this also did too. So, I hope to continue working on it. You can find me on Aameront. I believe that is my TikTok. And if you and jewelry, you can find me at Official Forgotten Collective on Instagram.
All right, and I will be linking all of these sites, the TikTok of our guest here, in the description down below. With that, thank you all for joining us for another interview. We don't get to do these very often, but I'm always very happy to do them. And I've had a wonderful guest today. You all be well. Support us on Patreon, join us in the Discord, and follow for more daily videos. And with that, I wish you all a good evening.